Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lesson for Tuesday, August 25th. So first off, if you check your agenda here, you'll see you need to go to Google Classroom to complete today's warm-up. Let me just show that to you really quick. So the warm-up for today has you analyzing the first half of the poem Upon the Burning of Our House by Anne Bradstreet. So this is a Puritan woman, and you'll be able to see that directly from kind of the themes that you see in here. So try to tie this back to what you know about Puritan ideals as we're getting ready to read the Crucible. This is another text that just gives us the idea of the mindset of the Puritans. So there are 5 questions. Just number your answers 1 through 5 and answer that as needed. Make sure you're using complete sentences when you're answering those questions. All right, so back to the website, check out the agenda. Today we're going to be discussing the rhetorical triangle. So even if you don't think you know it, you probably do. Once I start talking about ethos, pathos, logos, then you'll be like, oh, that's what that is. So let's take a look at the slides for today. The art of rhetorical analysis. So again, I've said this in class quite a few times, but I want to make sure I'm going over this with you as well. So rhetoric is the art of discourse or communication, both speaking or writing. So it's the different ways that we try to persuade people, basically. Rhetorical analysis, this occurs when you're analyzing the writing or speech of someone else. So it differs from argument. Think argument and rhetorical analysis. Argument is you are actually making the argument, where rhetorical analysis is you are breaking down somebody else's argument. All right, so Aristotle was really the first one to come up with this idea of the rhetorical triangle. His book, that's referred to as The Art of Rhetoric, is considered the foundation for all studies of rhetoric and persuasion. So with his triangle, you can see this doesn't have the traditional ethos, pathos, logos like you would think. What he was trying to do is show that there is basically a back and forth that exists between the speaker, the audience, and the subject, and they're always interacting with each other, and you have to be aware of one to really be effective in the other things. So he stated that in any argument, 3 elements are in constant communication with one another: the writer, the subject, and the audience. So just kind of follow this from the right-hand side, and you'll move around in a counterclockwise manner. So simply put, when an author writes, he must consider the subject of the piece and make sure he is presenting the topic in a persuasive light. So there you can see the interaction between the speaker and the subject. When you move along, you see the interaction between the speaker and the audience. At the same time, he must know his audience and how to appeal to it, because the same tactics are not going to work with every single kind of audience. So you have to really understand who the audience is if you're going to be effective and try to persuade them. So moving along down here, audience and subject. Similarly, the audience is interpreting the writer's words as well as interacting with the subject. So they are thinking about it as the author is speaking about it. They're trying to see if they have any bias towards the issue or not. So the audience is working with the subject. The speaker's got to think about the subject, and the speaker has to know his audience. So that you can see that the 3 are in constant motion. All right, the author's perception of the audience. Obviously, if you don't understand your audience, it's hard to create an effective argument. So understanding an author's perception of his audience can aid the reader by providing context. Context is very important. So it's important that we're always doing that background research on whoever is speaking or whoever has written the piece that we're going to be looking at. So I'll often provide background videos or short little bios for you, just so you can try to understand the who, what, where, when, why. Whenever you're trying to understand context, we need to know who wrote it, when they wrote it, why they wrote it, and just anything else that's going to give us any kind of clue into why the author is writing what he's writing. You have to understand who the author wants to impact with the message. Are they going at an individual, a specific group, or are they going for the general public? Because there's different tactics there. Individual, you can be more personal. It's going to tackle a narrow subject. And as we move up, try to hit specific groups. Then that broadens out a little bit more. And when you do the public, you have to be as broad as possible, just because there's so many conflicting ideologies. When you're looking for the public, that's going to be newspapers, novels, that type of thing. So what an author says and how he or she says it depends on whom the author perceives will be receiving the message, so the intended audience. So if you have a college professor that's writing a paper about some specific literary piece that gets published in a journal, who's his intended audience? So that's going to be, it could be students, it could be anybody that likes the piece, it could be other professors, the normal readers of that periodical or journal. So you have to know who your intended audience is in order to be able to effectively reach them. Author's purpose. So in basic terms, purpose is the writer's reason for writing. Why are they doing it? If you go back to Lou Gehrig's speech, what's his purpose in that speech? It's to convince you that he is the luckiest man on the face of the earth. So how does he do that? He provides examples. Oh, I've had this wonderful family. I've gotten to work with all these amazing people. So his purpose is also at the same time to focus on the good and not really dwell on the bad things. So he's focusing on his family, the career he had, even though he's got this horrible disease. All right. So what does the writer hope to accomplish is the question you need to be asking. So to answer that question, you need to know information about the speaker, the subject, and the audience. And then this goes through some common purposes for writing: to inform, to instruct, persuade. Obviously, there's a whole lot more, but this all ties back to author's purpose. Why are they writing this? They're not always going to state their purpose outright either. Sometimes we have to really dive in deep to understand what their purpose is. All right, move on. All right, be mindful of the author's tone or attitude as you're reading an essay. This awareness is as important as the content itself. The tone depends on the author's purpose and audience and is created by using presentation tools or rhetorical tools, which include appeals, modes, and devices. So this is a different version of the rhetorical triangle that you're all probably more familiar with. It talks about ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos has to do with, it's an appeal to ethics, but by doing that, you're trying to establish credibility as the speaker. It's important to establish credibility because if you can't do that, why should I even bother listening to you? You're not an expert on the subject. So ethos is about ethics and creating that credibility. Pathos is directed at the audience. It's all about emotion. You want them to feel something: sad, angry, jealous, motivated. Think about those ASPCA commercials with the poor dogs that are shivering that people always bring up, and it kills me every time. But those are all there really to persuade you to act. They want you to feel something so that you will then act. Logos, easy way to remember this is LOG, logos, LOG, logic. So logos is the Greek term for logic. Whenever you're dealing with appeals to logos, that's going to be really fact-based stuff. Statistics, 4 out of 5 dentists agree, that type of thing. All right, so the next several slides just going to go through examples of ethos, pathos, and logos. Feel free to peruse those. Sorry, I cannot talk. Peruse those at your leisure. Obviously, you guys, I think, have this down pretty well, so I'm not going to spend additional time on that. All right, so that's it for today's lesson. Your assignment for today is a pretty easy one. Head over to Google Classroom, get the details on that. But all you need to do is join the AP College Board site. This is going to give you information on the tests as well as resources that you can access. But just look at Google Classroom, follow the instructions on the handout, and if you have any questions, reach out. All right, have a great day.